Welcome to Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. Today we're going to be talking about quoting. Diane Greenwood is our expert here on quoting today. She's giggling because she just said to me, I don't know when I last did a quote actually, Louise. But the reason we're doing quoting today is because Diane will be presenting on a masterclass later all about quoting. And this particular masterclass is one of our favourites. We've done it before. It's on role plays. Now, last time we did it, I was kind of in the hot seat and Diane was there and I didn't get much preparation and she threw lots and lots of questions at me and I just had to answer. I'm quite experienced at quoting. I'm pretty good at this. So today I finally get my revenge, and not only do I get to grill her live on a masterclass, hopefully to give people the answers they want, I'm going to have a practice session here on the podcast.
Is that right?
Diane, tell me about your experience of quoting. How long have you been quoting for? How did you learn? How did it get as good as it is now?
I learnt by trial and error, 100%. I had no sales background, really. I'd been in recruitment, so there's an element of sales to that. But mostly my experience was in managing a team, running an office. So I had very little sales training or sales background. So yeah, I had to learn by my mistakes. That's kind of how I learned to quote. I learned what worked.
Did you? I see mine. I've got loads and loads of sales background, lots of theory, lots of training. And so for me, it was quite a doddle. I went straight in, knew what to do, delivered it, boom, boom, boom. It was easy. Isn't it weird that we both ended up at the same point? Exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think what it teaches us this is that actually sales is a skill that you can learn. So me going from no sales background, actually didn't know if I could sell, to you being really super confident that you can sell, we can both sell really well. Because we learn how to do it.
And I think what's really fun is along the way, as I've learned more sales skills and more NLP and like really taking the background knowledge into it and keep applying it, I love it. And yes, you can tweak things better and better. But what I've learned from working with you and other cleaning business owners, there is a really, really identical script that underpins everything. And yes, you can tweak it and yes, you can improve it. But the fundamental script is identical, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I like role play so much. And I often do this with DCBM members. And at first they panic and they go, oh no, I don't want to do a role play. And I'm like, first of all, it's only me. So it's okay. It's a safe space. But also it's practice is how you learn to do things better. You know, that's how we learn to do everything, isn't it? By practicing it and doing it more. And role play is a perfect way of getting a script and then practicing it until you feel comfortable and that it's your script.
Is it wrong that I want to make jokes about role play? Is it wrong?
It's always wrong that you want to make jokes about role play.
Okay, so I won't today. Let's keep it clean. Okay, so role play. So in our role play, who are you and who am I, Diane? Sorry, right, okay, we're moving on. So I am going to be the customer, Diane. Okay? You want to stop recording now, don't you? She's got the giggles. Okay, so I'll be the customer. And you can be you. You can be the cleaning business owner. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
You can be you. So I'm going to give you a really simple one to begin with. I'm not even going to put on an accent. I'm just going to make it really simple.
Put on an accent. Put on an accent.
No, because I'm not very good at accents. If I try and do like Scottish, it comes out Indian and things like that. It doesn't end well. And I'm just going to offend some kind of nationality if I try any kind of accent. Okay. So, right, who am I? So I'm going to phone up. I'm going to do ring, ring. I'm literally going to go into that. Ring, ring. You're going to say hello to me.
Yes. Good afternoon. Diane speaking. How can I help?
Hello, I'm looking for a cleaner.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you've called the right people then. Fantastic. Are you looking for a regular or a one-off service?
Yeah, so I'm looking for a regular service. I need a cleaner every 2 weeks. I just want to know, what are the prices? Have I gone in a bit harsh there right from the beginning? What are the prices, Diane?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be able to give you the price. But is it all right if I ask you a few questions about the house and who lives there, and then I'll be able to give you a quote over the phone?
Yep, sure.
So what I've done there is, first of all, I asked if it was regular or one-off, because in the mind of the potential customer, they think that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask to get the price. Even though in our business, actually, it's usually the same price per hour. But then when she asked, then it directly asked about the price quite harshly. So that happens. Then I'm asking permission to ask some questions before I can give her the price. So again, it seems really reasonable to them that I need that information before I can quote. So I
Yeah.
kind of got permission to ask questions, basically.
As a customer, I'm never going to say no, don't get any more details. Don't give me an accurate quote. Just tell me the price. It's like, how?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right, go on. Next question. You're going to have to ask me the questions.
So now I'm going to be asking Louise about her house and who lives there. So I'll be okay. So how many bedrooms have you got? And we don't need to go through the whole role play, but I'm also going to ask who lives there. And often what happens here, this is often the opportunity to build a bit of rapport. So if somebody says to me, "Oh, I've got there's 3 kids, my husband, myself, and we've got a couple of dogs as well, and we both work full time," so I kind of go, "Oh, I can't think why you need some help," just sort of jokingly with a little bit of a laugh, and it's just a chance to kind of make them realize that I get it because I know that they need some help, but also it helps them relax a little bit, that I'm not going to judge them. I'm here to just sort of look to help them, I suppose.
Do you know what? I do it a little bit differently. I start off with that question. What has prompted you to look for a cleaner? And then they go off on one about, well, they go off of any direction they want, quite frankly. It suits for me because if they're talking, we're building rapport. And I'm like, score, love it. Keep talking.
Absolutely. And a good question to ask as well is, have you ever had a cleaner before?
Yes, sometimes I ask that. So when I say to them, what's prompted you to look for a cleaner? It'll either come up, or when I say, one of my next questions is, are you looking weekly or 2 weekly? So if they've said, I'm looking regular, are you looking weekly or 2 weekly? What did you have in mind? Then, and I'll say, have you had a cleaner before? And they go, yes. And I'm like, brilliant. So you know what to expect. Okay, tell me, what did they do that you liked? What did they do that you didn't like? And I need to do better so that you think we're the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they'll say to you, "Oh, I had a cleaner. They were amazing, but they've retired." And I'll say, "So, and you kind of go, oh, it's amazing when you get that gem, isn't it? But when they leave you, it's really hard." But I'll go, "But the good news is, I've got some real gems in my team. So hopefully we can find a really good replacement for you." So it's you ask a question, you get a response, but you use it to kind of let them know and reassure them that you're there to help and to replace them, I suppose.
Now, you quote over the phone. Is that just because you're in France? Do you even quote?
No.
Do you even do quotes, Diane? Tell me more.
I don't actually do many of the quotes in the business anymore, but I train my team to quote. So we started after COVID. Well, to be fair, actually we started pre-COVID because we've always given the price over the phone. So we've always gone through this call, but then the follow-up has always been, okay, so we've got a ballpark figure. So the next step is to come out and have a look. We just stopped going out and having a look after COVID. So we've always had this process of, I don't want to go and see people that think that £15 an hour is the right is the going rate. So rather than waste my time going out to see people, driving out in the middle of the night, trying to find this house that's not got a number, it's got a name, and it's a really dark country lane.
You hope for bin day, don't you? You hope for bin day so that the bins are out labelling it.
So I just learned, actually, I don't want to do that if they're not in the right sort of price range for my business. So I would rather get the price out of the way on the phone. So that was started well before COVID, probably around 2015, we were doing that. So that's been part of my sales process for a long time. So when COVID hit and we were just like, well, we're not going out to do quotes anymore, we just carried it on. And it works. We don't have to go and see anybody at all. We have to ask a few more questions about the house and the sizes of the room, and be a lot sort of like ask more questions about the surfaces than we would normally have done when we were going out to actually look at the house. But the principles are the same.
So my evolution was a little bit different. So we did a similar thing. So I'd do a quote over the phone, I'd give a ballpark figure, and then like you, I'd go out and actually have a look at it. So when lockdown happened and I stopped going out to have a look, we moved to video quoting. And a lot of people go, well, how do you do video quotes? It's interesting because we actually have got videos of us doing video quotes, actual real life role plays. I love video quoting, Diane. I love it because with the best will in the world, sometimes they show you things and their description of their house is vastly different to their house. So either they're like, oh my gosh, I had one this week. She was like, my house is awful. Oh, it's really bad. I need all the UPVC cleaned in my conservatory. So we go and we have a look in the conservatory. I was like, so there's a few dead bugs on your UPVC, but it's not yellow or anything. I was like, do I need to clean down all your UPVC, or am I cleaning those little lips where maybe you've got a few drips, which is vastly different to kind of how you're describing it to me. Her house was immaculate. I was like, what exactly are we deep cleaning here? And she was like, oh, well, my skirting boards need doing. I was like, you did them yesterday. Like,
yeah, but it's more likely to be the other way around, though, isn't it? It's more likely to be actually they don't describe it in quite the way, and our cleaning team will go, and then they'll pick up the phone and go, and this is what we expected. But you know what? I think I've learned to have a little bit of a sixth sense about these things, and there's been a couple of occasions since we started doing it solely on the phone where I've kind of gone, I think this needs a sales appointment. I don't know what it is, and I've always been right. But you just kind of get a sense, I think, when you've been doing it for a long time, you just start to, I don't know whether it's red flags or what it is, but I just kind of get a sense sometimes that this is not quite what they're telling me. And then we'll book an appointment just to check.
yeah, well, there's often, I think you recorded me unexpectedly around my house. You were staying around my house, and I had to do a quote there and then. Don't know why I arranged one when I knew you were coming around anyway. And stupidly, I was sat there going, oh, I better get on with it. I don't normally do quotes in the evening. I was like, I'll get on with it. And then Diane picks up her phone and starts filming me. I was like, are you kidding me? Or not only am I sat here virtually in my PJs, sat here slobbing out doing it.
Do you know what, Louise? It was a masterclass in managing client expectations. You were quoting for a one-off clean that was happening the next day. It was already booked in, wasn't it? You were just kind of confirming things. And it genuinely, you were just managing what she expected you to be able to do in the time. So she was like, okay, not all the kitchen cupboards need cleaning, but if you could just check them all. And you were like, if we're going to check them all, that means cleaning them all. So do you want us to clean them all, or just the ones that you've identified as dirty? And it was brilliant. So actually, that's why I started recording, because I was just like, this is gold.
Yeah, because I was getting hacked off. You know, when you're like, I've got someone round, the last thing I want to be doing is a quote. I'll do it because you want it done tomorrow, and you are going to play me up. And this customer properly played me up. She was like, oh, I don't need this, I don't need that. Just make sure it's done. But what do you mean? Like,
and you were very firm with her. You were very polite, but you were very firm and very clear about what she can expect. And also, I edited it a little bit. So actually, in the edit, at points, it sounded like you were talking over, and you weren't. But actually, you were very firm at managing what she could expect. And I thought it was brilliant.
do you want to hear? Because actually, that's been released now. Do you want to hear what actually happened with that customer? It was a interesting one, because I was really firm, and she was like, I don't want all the kitchen cupboards done, I just want these two. Right, so we're like, okay, fine, so we only did those two. She wants the surface done. Anyway, the cleaners get there the next day, and they were told to clean all the kitchen floors, and we had been very specifically told not to do the kitchen floors. And so I phoned her up and I said, the cleaners are telling me you need your kitchen floors done, but they need absolutely scrubbing, right? So that's not a quick whip over. She goes, yeah, well, you were doing the cupboards anyway, it would have got mucky. I was like, no, there's a difference between what we were going to do coming out of the cupboards. She goes, well, I didn't know the workmen were going to come in yesterday with all their boots and move all their stuff, and they've made an absolute mess.
Since you did the quote.
Since we did the quote. And so she goes, they made an absolute mess. And I was like, but what do you want me to do? I didn't quote you for doing them. Yes, we can do them, but you're going to then have this left off. You wanted these bedrooms done. You're going to have them left off. And she was like, oh, well, just do a quick whip round with the Hoover or something. And I was like, you've got great big pieces of paper. This is not a quick whip round. Oh, and then we got in there. This is going to be such a normal story to cleaners. We get in there, and she says to my cleaners, you can't use any of the water, right? There's potentially leaks, right? And so the cleaners phone me up and go, Louise, am I meant to clean the bathroom with no water? I was like, I don't know. You can spray and wipe, I guess. So I phoned the customer. I was like, you've told my staff that they can't use any water. Is that the case? She goes, no. There's just one toilet that has like a bit of a leak in the ceiling underneath it. So they can't flush that one toilet, but they can do the other 3 bathrooms. And I was like, all right, fine. So they can use the water. And she was like, yes, they can. It's so challenging sometimes with customers, and you know the customers that are going to be challenging right from the beginning. And you go, I quoted for you yesterday. You knew this. You could have told me all of this. Why are my cleaners turning up on site? And I run through lots of risk assessments and checking these things. Why was I not told these things? And my staff are now confused, and I'm having to take time out my day to phone you to verify. This isn't needed on the podcast, is it?
No, you're ranting now, Louise.
I am.
But it's okay, because actually, do you know what? I think we've all had that rant, haven't we, over a clean that we've booked, and yeah, the goalposts changed. And did you take payment in advance though?
Yes, we always take payment in
Yeah,
advance.
and that's something that we do as well. And actually, that stops a lot of the problem being your problem.
Yes, yes. When they know they've paid in advance, they suddenly realise they've got to negotiate a bit better with you. And you go, well, what do you want me to do, this or this? Well, I suppose I'd better pick one of them, rather than going, well, I want everything. Oh, do you want to pay more?
And going back to quoting though, so obviously we quote over the phone, you quote over video. It's very, very similar. What is lost in that? Is there anything lost in that, in terms of, when we used to go out to do the quote? There are things, aren't there?
I'll tell you what I've lost, right? Let's look at the benefits of what I've lost, right? I've lost the 20-minute travel there. I've lost the 20-minute travel back. And my quotes used to take me an hour. I am now down to half an hour. I have now lost, what's that? 40 minutes plus 30 minutes. I've lost an hour and 10 minutes per quote, right? I've lost it every time. Now, let's say 50% of my quotes go with me. Well, that's 5 odd hours, probably 6-7 hours lost. I've lost that. That's back in my day. And then even better than that, if I make a mistake on a quote, and this is the reality, I could make a mistake, but I always made mistakes anyway. Like, you still make mistakes, but if I make a mistake, well, that's 7 hours of my time. I can throw in 2 extra hours for free because I've saved 7 hours of my time. So, like, yes, you've lost that little bit of detail. Yes, I've lost that hour's quote, which has now gone down to half an hour. I've lost some of that rapport. But I, like you, Diane, don't want this friendship. Like, I need them to know that I can do the job well, and I can deliver that in 30 minutes. After an hour, sometimes I felt really connected to these customers. I don't need that level of connection. So I've lost that. I've lost being able to really see the dirt. But, I feel like my savings more than outweigh it. What's your what have you lost?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think you lose a little bit of that rapport, but you don't need it to make the sale, because they phoned up because they want a cleaning service, and we're really good at what we do, and I'm good at convincing them over the phone. I suppose the risk point is that it will be dirtier than you expect. But actually, when I've been out to quotes, I don't go around with a white glove. So with the best will in the world, I've got to be polite and not look too deeply. So actually, I'm not sure that I've probably got caught out even on an in-person quote.
I'll tell you what I do get from video quotes, because I'm not there. So I will say to them things like, they'll go, oh, my hob's fine. I'm like, just touch the tiles behind it with the back of your hand. Oh, it's a bit sticky. Yeah, that's stickiness, right? 1, that's red flags to me. 2, you now know it's sticky. So you now know that we've got to clean it. Whereas when I was doing it, customers say a lot of things about their house, and they are a little deluded sometimes as to how mucky they can be. Whereas when I'm making them touch it, so let's look at your blinds. What I want you to do is, I want you to touch it. I want you to really go, I'll tell you where the dirt will be in your house. I want you to go and find it. And it gives them a real understanding of how bad their house can be. So I guess in that way, it's a little bit of torture for them sometimes, because they leave my quotes and I've really shown them how bad their house is.
Actually, that's a good point, isn't it? Because in person, it's hard to go, when was the last time you cleaned your skirting boards? But you can't kind of ask it quite as directly as that, but you sort of can get them to acknowledge that they're pretty mucky.
Or I can't quite see your skirting boards properly. Can we go a little bit closer? Yeah. Oh, yeah, they are quite bad. Is that just dust that I can see, or am I going to have to scrub them as well? You're going to have to scrub them. Okay, then. Yeah. Right, so we're both agreed on what's going to happen here.
And also, what I like about doing it over the phone or video is that I can kind of temperature check them all the way through. I can ask them questions about what do they think about, the time that I've just suggested. And I even ask them about what do they think about the price. But also, I think you get a little bit of leeway if you've made a mistake. So if you've booked them in for sort of, a 3 hours weekly, or 3 hours fortnightly clean based on what they've told me, then actually, if the house is a lot bigger than we expected, I kind of earned the right to almost go back because they know I haven't seen the house. So it's almost like,
Yeah,
our team have come, and we may need to adjust how long we're there for if you want the level of clean that we've discussed. Kind of almost giving myself some leeway, I think.
for me, okay, I don't go and check any of the cleans anymore. I have a quality manager that does that. But if it was me, I would be doing it personally. I would always say I'll get to the end of the clean and I will have a much better idea. So our wonderful quality manager, Donna, comes back and she doesn't necessarily negotiate with customers, but she'll feed back to customers and she tells me, and then I'll phone up the customer an hour or so later and we'll renegotiate it. But if I was there in person, I would be checking the clean or doing the clean, and I would be renegotiating at that point because I just always found quoting a very time consuming job.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and if I do have to go out and do an in person quote now, the thing that I find most frustrating is I type up on my computer. So I'm on a call, such as we record on the computer, obviously here, and I can be typing as we go. And if I need to say, just wait a second, just before we move to the next room, just let me write notes, that's fine. I get to the end of the quote and they get it emailed over immediately. It takes me no time whatsoever. There is nothing worse than getting to the end of a quote, then having to drive home, then spend, and it does only take me 5 minutes, but typing up that quote, for some reason, I don't want to get my computer out and type it up. It's like the most annoying thing. And even worse, if you've done 3 or 4 quotes and you have to type them up and you're going, I can't remember the difference. What was that house again? And even though I've written notes and I'm like, oh no. So whereas now I can do video calls and they're back to back and I can do 5 or 6 back to back. I don't have to remember any of them, and I don't. And so I'll get a call a week later saying, Louise, we're on a clean. Do you remember this and this about the house? And I'm like, oh, no. Tell me again. Give me the address. Tell me what are we doing, and I'll see. And it's often phone the customer now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
And one thing that we also do, and this is about managing expectations, and giving ourselves the right to readjust if we need to on the quote, is I always say, it's going to take us 2 or 3 visits before we've got on top of things, got to a maintenance level. And we don't always book extra in, but if we do, then it's quicker. But if we haven't booked any extra in, we do ask that. And we always say, and at the end of that, we'll have a little bit of a review. Is it working? Have we got enough time? Have we got too much time? So again, I've sort of like framed it up really that we might have to revisit the quote.
Yeah, I quite often look at it. Or I'll say, look, I don't know if your house is going to take us 2.5 or 3 hours a visit. I'm going to book you in for 3, but I fully accept that after 3 visits, it could go down to 2.5. Now, because I know I won't remember that house, I will make a note, may go down to 2.5, so that I know, because otherwise they ask for something and then it comes back to me and I go, I don't know whether we can approve to remove it. So I do have to make notes on everything.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. And like you said, if you're doing sort of 4 or 5 quotes, it's hard to do the paperwork afterwards. So it's much easier to do it while you're live and write notes to yourself, because you won't remember that customer in 3 weeks' time. Sorry, customers.
Do you enjoy quoting?
I like the sort of the thrill of it almost, but it's because it's more or less a script that's in my head. It's kind of, it's not monotonous. I feel a sense of achievement to sign somebody up, but it's easy, so it's not a challenge. Okay. I usually prefer to do things that are more challenging now.
So for a lot of cleaners that go out and do quotes, and I know when I used to do this, I would leave, and sometimes I'd do 4 or 5 in an evening, and I would often leave with 4 or 5 sets of keys. Yep. And they're tied in. Now, the reality, if you do a phone quote or a video quote, they can cancel that at any time. You haven't got their keys. Do you think that telephone or video quoting is as successful as in-person quoting?
It probably isn't, if we're completely honest, because you've not literally gone to see somebody 20 minutes later, you've got their keys and their alarm code and you know when they're going on holiday. You don't get any of that. So you're right, they're perhaps not as secure when you do the quote, but because we save 5 or 6 hours at least a week, it's kind of worth it.
So if you were sort of a one-man band, if it was you or 2 or 3 staff, would you be I mean, I'd still be doing a telephone pre-quote, I've got to say. But if you were only small, because obviously we're running big teams, so actually if one person's quoting, we can whack through. It's more efficient for us to whack through. But actually, if you had a small team, would you be doing in-person quotes or would you go telephone quoting? Like, what would you do if you were only small?
I would definitely do the quote over the telephone and then perhaps go and confirm it in an appointment, because that appointment will be quicker, because it will be more a case of going to get the keys and that sort of thing. But there does come a point where actually you make a decision that even that's, not needed.
Do you think that when you hit a certain size, we accept there's a certain churn of customers? And I think when you've got, I mean, when you've got by the time you hit sort of 150, 200 customers, and there's one person quoting, you're going to have a churn. Inevitably, you're going to have a churn. And I love it when people come on and they go, I've got all the same customers. I've had them for the 10 years. And I'm like, I've got through 1,000 customers, more than 1,000 customers, way more in 10 years. And, is there going to inevitably be a certain churn?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think it's that balance. For me, business is often all about the numbers, isn't it? And if your conversion rate suddenly drops significantly, if you try to not go out to customers, then you either need to work on your telephone or video quoting skills, or perhaps it's too soon for you to be not going out and doing in-person quotes. It might not be that, but it's worth sort of assessing it on yourself, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's all really interesting. I love the quoting. I love the process behind it. I love the softer science behind it. Um, Thank you, Diane. If anybody would like to see more and actually watch us quote, obviously tonight we're doing it live and we are going to do role plays. And I have got some mean ones for Diane to see how she copes.
Thank you.
And that will all be recorded. That will be in the DCBN library. So if you want to watch it, obviously it's included with your membership. Yeah, go watch it if you're a member. If you're not, why not? You should already be a member. If you're a cleaning business owner and you want to grow, which is probably why you're listening to this podcast, then get signed up, www.dcbn.org.uk. Become a member and get access to all the training. These podcasts are just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to learn how to do any of these skills properly, you've got to go and watch the full video.
Thanks, Louise.
Lovely to speak to you. Bye-bye.